Good morning, DZRJ, 8:10 a.m. The Voice of the Philippines proudly presents Piracy Watch with attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan, exploring the concepts of intellectual property rights and protection, teaching you how to protect what you create. And now, here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Hi everyone, welcome on the Piracy Watch, the only show in the airwaves dedicated to intellectual property. This morning I am joined by Mr. Larry Brewer. Hi Larry.
Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
I'm good. And Mr. Ramon Ravi Sunico, publisher, manager of the Cacho Publishing House. Good morning, Ravi.
Morning.
Yes, and we are going to talk about this very interesting news story that I came across last week. According to the news, the provincial government of Laguna is set to test some 1,000 electronic book or e-book readers or tablets in public high schools when school opens in June. The e-book readers will be locally branded as Rizal tablets after the national hero Jose Rizal, who hails from Calamba, Laguna. This is a tribute, according to Laguna Governor George Ejercito. Some 20 to 30 teachers will also be trained for the test run. The Rizal tablet, much like the iPad or the Kindle, can be preloaded with hundreds of electronic textbook copies and reference materials for the high school curriculum. Each tablet will cost $100, and the Laguna provincial government will subsidize the procurement of the tablets from China. Well, where else, right? According to Dr. Esther Lozana, Laguna Superintendent of the Department of Education, the project coincides with Education Secretary Armin Luistro's vision of a bookless society, replacing thousands of textbooks ruined to Ondoy in 2009. So this coming June, 1,000 high school students in Laguna will be, instead of books, holding tablets, and that is courtesy of the provincial government of Laguna and the manufacturer from China. And of course, there are pros and cons to this, and in relation to Piracy Watch, we would like to know what would be the possible IPR issues that the publishers would like to raise, and we will begin with that with Mr. Ravi. How about you, Ravi? What do you think of this new development? Are students carrying e-book readers or tablets to school? Do you think, what are the ramifications?
Well, I think like all new technology, this raises a lot of questions. There's one, simple optics. We were discussing this earlier. How will this affect the children's eyes? Mm-hmm. The second one, I think, which is more germane to the discussion, is what textbooks are going to be loaded? Mm-hmm. Do they have the right to do this? What formats are they in? The news report doesn't say, no?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't say what textbooks will be there and what sort of cooperation or agreements will there be with regard to the authors or the publishers.
Exactly. And I think, as you know, the traditional approach to publishing books is royalty, which is you get a percentage of the price of an individual copy of a book that's sold. Now, what happens when it becomes an e-book? What happens, for example, suppose they hard copy it into the tablet, and the kid goes out, gets drunk during his junior, senior prom. These are high school students.
Yes.
Or he leaves it out in the rain. Or he gets held up. For whatever reason, he loses the tablet. How is the tablet replaced? How fast will it be replaced? After all, he's still in school. And that copy of his textbook, are the royalties, are the publishers being remunerated, is the author getting a share of that? All of these questions come up, and my sense is so many people now are getting it's a fad, especially because of the iPad, are getting into it, are getting onto the bandwagon. I think this is fueled more by the quotas of marketing of hardware manufacturers.
So is this a trending opportunity for manufacturers, or
I think the push is for manufacturers. I think.
How about you, Larry?
Can I disagree with that? Sure. No,
Go ahead.
I'm not going to pretend that I don't have a vested interest in this. I've read ebooks myself for more than 10 years. I'm a writer as well, and I've done distance learning, and so the electronic media is something that I'm very interested in. Yeah. Another thing that's very important to me is I have a daughter who's going into the second grade. Sarah has heard me speak of her once or twice, probably. In the first grade, she has to pull. We have to pull a bag that weighs more than 50 pounds of 10 or 12 or I don't know how many books there are, which makes it it's an impossible thing for a child to carry around today. Anything that can make that load a little bit less, I think, is a wonderful thing. And so I believe that it's really wonderful that one school is taking the lead in doing this, because 5 years down the road we won't even be talking about this. Everybody will be doing it. That's my.
That's the bandwagon.
Going to be the mainstream.
That's what
bandwagon.
But no, it's not bandwagon. It's what's going to happen, because as you know, textbooks, and I think one of your things that you don't like about it is certainly something that I wouldn't like about it. Textbooks as they're made today are not so good for looking on the screen, for reading on the screen. I don't think. Getting away from the intellectual property side of it.
Right.
They're not made for that. They're not made for the screen. So we have to make them multimedia. We have to change the way that the textbooks are done. But that will be done, because we've done that with every bit of technology along the lines, and going into the intellectual property side of it as well. One of the good things or bad things about being an old guy and having lived through several generations, I remember the problems of word processors. We know that word processors look just like typewriters when they began. They're very different from that today. Also, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Typists Union of the great universities in the United States brought a suit against the schools for bringing word processors in as opposed to typewriters. They wanted.
Fascinating.
They wanted. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, by the way.
As it should. As it should.
They wanted to preserve their typists pool, and they wanted to preserve their typists union. Well, of course they lost. Of course they lost, because you can't unring a bell and you can't turn back time. And so I'm in full agreement with you from the standpoint we should look into things and find out, is this going to be damaging to the eyes? How can we make it better? It can't be any more damaging than a child trying to carry around 50 pounds of books.
Well,
But why do
That's
our children? I mean, why do children have to carry as much books?
Well, I think
anyway
there's more than one reason. When I went to grade school, our books were heavier, but we didn't have to lug them around.
Oh,
We
well,
left them in school. We had lockers.
oh, see, there's
So
a
it's a
solution.
failure of a system.
No,
in
well,
a
maybe you
sense.
didn't have homework where they had to take the books home every day. I mean, they actually have homework in the first
Well,
grade.
I think we were
now,
better educated than the kids now.
We'll have to argue about that under a different time.
Two, I know a printing press that printed a grade 1 textbook, 200 pages long.
Oh wow! How are you
I mean,
supposed to? And that's just one textbook.
Yeah, it's a public school textbook. This was ages ago. I don't know if they still do it now. So people were bloating the sizes of the books.
Can we? Is that one of those things we should say? Duh.
No, really, really.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
because when you're in grade
that's,
school or you're in high school, you have an average of what, 8 subjects?
No, that's a corruption issue.
It's
You
a
pad the
corruption
price of
issue.
the book.
I see. That's why
So
you make
so
it
there are
really
many
thick.
reasons why books are heavy.
But there are
Right?
solutions. I mean, you could have. I mean, the schools could have provided lockers, but that's just not the trend in
Yeah,
Philippine
and I
schools.
think a good lesson plan. You
And a
don't
good
have to
lesson
read
plan.
every book every day. You don't have to bring it home. I think it's silly.
It's a management issue as well.
Yeah, it's a
when it comes
management
to,
issue. And this
education.
problem has hit. I know for sure it's even hit the European countries, and they've solved it with the locker system, with
Definitely
better
can be
planning, with better use of textbooks, with a better design of textbooks.
Better policy and better management, as you said, and with the Secretary of Education's vision of a bookless society, this is definitely going to be a trend, more or less. We're going to be compressing.
Yes,
books
I think
into tablets.
the technology is inevitable, but I was raised to. It was Ibsen who said, "The public is always wrong. The majority is always wrong." No, I'm just saying that if the Laguna government is going to do this, then it's a nice time to do the tests. Let's learn what are the publishing contracts like in terms of IPR. Let's check the health of the kids before and after. I mean, this is a great opportunity. What I don't want is, for example, the mindless adoption by a school of the ebook system just because it's in. They've not trained their teachers. They've not trained their students how to use it. They don't think of things like how do you replace an ebook that breaks?
Who owns the ebook?
Who
in the
owns
first
the
place?
ebook? Yeah, no one. The article doesn't answer that question.
And maybe the provincial government doesn't know whether it's a loan or a donation.
And
to the
without
students.
that, you don't know how the intellectual property rights are being handled.
To jump
Oh,
in
yeah,
here
Larry.
again,
Please.
we've always been behind. Technology runs here, and our laws run somewhere
Correct.
5 to 10 years behind always.
Correct.
And to say we shouldn't do this if we haven't brought all the laws into gear with it,
Yeah.
I think is a mistake. The laws are going to
Yeah.
be behind. Yeah, these are things that have to be addressed, and they should be addressed, but they're not a reason not to do it. I think.
Yeah, well,
And that's the. I do believe we have to address them. How do we make sure that the writer gets what
Gets paid.
Gets paid. You know,
No, and just
that
because
is
it's an
important,
ebook
you know.
doesn't mean it's a good book, as you know.
Well,
I mean,
trust me.
Content-wise.
yeah, the format isn't the content. They're two different things.
It may be easy to
So,
carry around.
I'm not against the adoption of technology. I'm against the mindless adoption of technology. I
It
should
should be well
qualify.
thought of.
Yeah, they should. I mean, these are kids.
But again,
They're helpless.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that this is a mindless thing. We had an Ondoy disaster 2 years ago, and we
Right.
lost a lot of textbooks. And if this is a way of replacing it, even if it is just a pilot study with 1,000
Yeah.
students, it is 1,000 students. And I was very heartened to hear that the price is only $100, so they must
Per
be
tablet.
per tablet. So they're using the
Yeah,
same
that's the
sort of
going
thing.
rate for
the same thing
Androids.
for Kindle. Kindle is about $100 now, $110.
Yeah, they have a cheaper
through
one. They
Amazon
just came
now.
out with a
But
cheaper
That's,
maybe
one.
that's
that's
just
about
the
what that
hardware.
costs now.
I mean,
That's the hardware, right.
The license for the books
Well,
might
the
not
thing
be
is here
included yet.
again, it seems to me that all schools have libraries, and all libraries have to deal with publishers as well. And I would assume that schools have the same sort of.
Not all schools have libraries
They
here,
don't have. Oh,
unfortunately.
I mean, I'm talking about the United States. We
Yeah.
always did, and I'm sure that they all have agreements with publishers of how books can be used by many people. The same book.
No, it's
in the
very
paper books,
rudimentary.
in
No,
in
the paper books.
The paper books. you
Let's
know.
call them codices.
Well, and
Yeah.
we've always had that. You know, we had it we had it 60 years ago when I was in school. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
in the first grade a lot. So I don't see these as insurmountable problems. They're problems
No,
that we
they're
have
not.
to address, but they're
Yeah.
not insurmountable.
Yeah.
So I was really heartened to hear that they were going to try this. I hadn't thought so much about the eye strain or the fact of eye, but I would. This maybe is a good point that just to mention that yesterday I did a translation of a press release of a Japanese company that has one of my clients that has just developed a technology in which they can very cheaply create really good color on a device
Yes.
and crisp letters at a low price. Now we've always been able to do it, but not at a price that you can commercialize.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be able to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And so we're looking probably in the next 3 or 4 years that we will be able to move from that really crisp look that we get on the Kindle to
Right.
full video at the same price as at $100 for.
No, they're even
for a-
studying
for a higher one,
foldable
you know.
and rollable
Well, yeah, they have that.
screens.
Yeah, they're there. You know, so I don't see the technology as a problem, and I don't see it as a problem with eyes, but it is certainly something that we should check. And I agree
Yeah.
with you. The school can check.
No, it's a
They,
great
don't
opportunity.
they check the kids' eyes at the beginning of the year anyway?
Who knows?
No, I
not
mean, in
really, it's
school
not
we always got to have
customary.
these eye tests and ear
We wouldn't
tests and
know.
things like
No,
that.
we're
before we
very.
start
It's a
school.
very
And
rudimentary
my
setup
daughter's
here.
school certainly does that, and so maybe. But public schools, I don't know. Are these public schools or
Yes,
private?
public
It is a
schools.
public school.
Public
okay.
high schools to be
Probably provincial.
Well, I think it's wonderful then because public schools seem to be always on the low end of the receiving side of anything, and so I
No,
think it's really
I just
wonderful
hope
that
they're
getting this,
transparent
you know.
and they show
Yeah,
everything. You
no,
know,
I
I
hope
mean,
so
they
too,
establish
yeah.
a baseline. They come out and say, "This is how we did it." I'd like to see a sample contract, for example, between the
How to-
government and the publisher,
Publishers.
because I think the concept of royalty will also change with the new
Well, it will have
technology.
to. It will have
You
to.
can't do a per piece concept anymore
No.
because
But
it's
again,
almost impossible to monitor the
Again,
sales.
can it go in the same direction that we do with textbooks or the same direction that we do with libraries and things like that? Maybe
Yeah.
using that as the initial model for it.
Yeah.
What I would like to see, and I think maybe this is one area that we probably both will agree on,
Mm-hmm.
is that now that we're having this pilot thing, why don't we identify textbooks and say, okay, how can we adapt these textbooks to the new media?
Exactly.
Because we have to. Because
Yeah.
we've got to make it interesting, and we're going to have to go to animations, we're going to
Yeah.
have to go to video, we're going to have to go to different ways. And this is the reason that my daughter and I are reading a book together right now.
Yeah.
But it's just a regular book ebooks are just like the old word processors.
Yeah.
We're reading them the same way that we did, except that we can make notes a little bit easier
Yeah.
than we could before. We can look things up in the dictionary a lot easier than we could before.
Yeah.
But we're still basically the same way. But I want her to learn to love to read, and learning to love to read.
Right.
It doesn't really matter if an ebook does it, then we should do it with an ebook. But if we can do it with graphics and with video and with animations, then it's even going to be more that she's going to love reading later. And I've always believed that if you love to read and you got a good book, you're never going to be alone.
We are
No,
talking.
You're never going to be lonely.
I think we're all book lovers here.
Well, we are,
Yeah.
And so I don't care about, I used to carry books. How many times have I left books on airplanes that I had to buy them again? Because go ahead, Sarah.
No, we're
gonna
talking
shut us
about
off?
electronic book readers for school kids this coming June in Laguna. And as there going to be piracy with the migration to this new medium. You are on the Piracy Watch with me, Attorney Sarah Sugitan, Mr. Larry Bruhard, and Mr. Ravi Sunico. And right now we're going to pause for Voice of America.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Welcome back on the Piracy Watch. Joining me this morning is Mr. Larry Bruhard. Hi, Larry, again.
Hi, I'm here, still here.
And Mr. Ramon Ravi Sunico, manager
Hi
of
again.
Cacho Publishing House. Hi, Ravi. We're talking about ebooks, which are going to be pilot tested in some Laguna high schools this coming June. And we are wondering what are the piracy issues involved and what sorts of rooms for improvement. So we're pointing out rooms for improvement for this pilot test by the government into ebooks. And for you to jump into the conversation, call us up here in the studio. It's 895-4460. Again, that's 895-4460. You can also watch us online via facebook.com/DZRJ810 AM. And the National Book Development Board's Executive Director has a few comments on this, these ebooks that are coming to Laguna by June. She says maybe kids will have awful handwriting as a result of this, and hand-to-eye coordination and comprehension might be affected by this move. Earlier we were discussing, the prices. How are we going to... Ravi, how are authors compensated at the moment when it comes to material books, the hardbound books? What are the
How are they
arrangements?
very, very meagerly. But that's my author's hat on.
Very meagerly. I think that's true for the
all
world.
writers
All writers.
All
So
writers cry.
I'm a writer who
We're
became
the-
a publisher.
We're the poorest paid people in the world.
But when it comes to
That's,
textbooks, how is the arrangement? Usually a textbook writer is, it's commissioned.
Well, usually you have a body of writers and then an editor. And then what you have, it's commissioned work. The gimmick is to look for teachers who are recognizable.
They're
So
the ones who write.
Yeah, so you try to get a teacher from a big school to write it. So there's a built-in market. And then you compute the royalties. It's still royalty-based. You can offer a lump sum if you want, and then there's an advance.
The royalties is like a percentage of the
A
sales,
royalty is a
or-
percentage of the price of one copy of the book.
So it depends on the retail price. It depends
Yeah,
on
well,
whether
there
the
are
book
two.
is
There are
sold.
two formulas. You can base it on the retail price. The retail price is the price you see it in the bookstore. So that's the walk-in customer's price. But then there's what you call the net price or the wholesale price, which is after you give the discount
To
to the
schools.
big bookstores
To
or
big
to the schools. In that
bookstores,
case, a school, not counting the refrigerator you're donating or the bus you're donating.
Yeah.
So that's right now it's anything from 40 to 50%. That's the one on paper. We don't know.
But for
Other things
ebooks,
happen.
we don't know because ebooks, the ebooks can the ebook readers, that's different. That's the Kindle or the tablet.
Yeah, that's a hardware.
Yeah, the hardware can carry hundreds of books inside its memory apparently. And we're talking about if one school textbook, say science textbook, is written by a slew of writers, not just one, maybe two or three or even more. There is a question how royalties are going to be paid, and even also the data, how is it going to be shown in the reader? Will
Right.
it be
Is
the
it
same?
will it be like any other app in an iPad, for example, that you can delete? Do you want it do you want a deletable textbook?
Yes. they
What
want to-
happens if
Some of us would like those.
Yeah, most of the students would like those. and then
Yeah,
they'll
I
say,
lost my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
No,
can claim
the
that.
computer ate my homework.
That's right.
So how do you solve that problem?
Oh no, the
Right.
students are going
So
to be saying that
will
to their
that
teacher.
when you replace the
Or
textbook, will that be considered a new sale,
Is
or
a
is
new
that
thing?
covered by the agreement? So it's these things that publishers want to learn about, and you go to these international book fairs and you ask about these questions.
Are there
Basically, they want to sell you software and hardware. They don't tell you how to do it. They don't tell you about the business side, which is bedeviling. In
That's
a
a
sense.
that's
Yeah, for
that's a
writers.
hard thing. Actually, there's one of the publishers, Moby Pocket, that
Yeah.
has you can buy their editor to be able to produce your own ebooks and that sort of, and it's very nice to be able to do that with things that you're teaching students or whatever
Yeah.
on your own, and it's a very nice thing to do. But
Yeah.
it
You can turn your
makes
lesson
it makes
plan
it
into a
difficult
book.
to. That's what I do with my kids. I would do it, and then I would put them on their palms readers, and they could study from the things that
Right.
that I was doing of my own children. So I find these things really cool to do, and for
Yeah.
them, they
Yeah.
find it. Well, this is a lot cooler to be able to do it with a little electronic device than to do it with a book or with a piece of paper
Yeah.
or whatever that they're going to do.
I'd just like to add
Yeah.
this perspective. We were talking about it earlier.
And that's 7 or 8 years ago.
People are thinking this is cutting edge. We both
It's not
agree
cutting
it's
edge,
it's
yeah.
transitional technology.
Yes, it is transitional.
If you want to really think, I think this is medium term stuff. Long term stuff is, this revolutionizes education. So the big sausage factory of a school, where you have thousands of students or
Without
like
classrooms
70
or
students
teachers.
in a classroom,
Yeah.
it makes homeschooling work. Remember
Absolutely.
this.
Yes, if you make technology
It makes
work. Yeah.
so then the DepEd ed has to think, how are we going to rate all these people?
I
mean,
believe that
if you're going to go
change.
into this, you go into it seeing
All
the
the
end.
way, yeah.
No, you have
All
to
the
see the end.
But the whole idea of education has changed now from what it was 30
Exactly,
years
that's
ago.
what
We
I'm
don't stand
saying.
in front of a group and talk for 4 hours and expect people to take notes anymore.
No.
We actually interact and we do a lot of
Yeah,
things. And there are people that are doing wonderful, wonderful things that they're putting up for free
Exactly.
on the internet right now. I don't know
So
if you've
the,
ever
the
seen
concept
the
of
Khan-
copyright is changing
the,
as
the
well.
Khan
Yeah.
Academy. This guy has got everything from mathematics, from simple addition up to differential
What's
calculus.
the URL?
KHAN Academy. Just look that up. I found it through a speech done by Bill Gates. He
Yeah.
had talked about
Yeah.
it. And this guy,
Well, even this TED.com
yeah, and
concept.
TED, well, this came off TED.com.
Yeah.
You know? This came out of TED.com.
Yeah.
And this guy Khan, it's interesting. He's an interesting story because he's in one of the least likely places to find somebody wanting to do something good for society. He was
Yeah.
a derivatives
There-
a derivatives
Calculus?
analyst.
Oh, I don't trust him already.
That's what he said.
That's why oil prices are high.
Prices
This is why he said, this is very unlikely that you would have someone. Oh, but his stuff is good. It's really, really
And
good.
it's free.
And I encourage you, and it's free. There are a
Yeah.
lot of things.
Yeah.
There are things out of Stanford that are free. There are things out of Harvard that are free now.
Yeah.
The amount of education you can get right now, if you have a proctor or a homeschooler or whatever.
No,
that
really,
would-
that's where
would
I'm
do the time
going.
for it would be great. And we do away with the sausage factory.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is a way that we can do it. And the
the real
this
exciting
book-
thing is the
book
cloud.
Yeah, the
It's
cloud.
cloud.
And but the book is only the just this little piece that we're using
yeah.
to do it. And
It's
there's
just one piece.
And I'd have to tell you, there is a joke along that somebody was saying, well, the iPad will never replace the newspaper.
Because
Because here's the guy.
my God.
Jump to it.
Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the guy sitting at his breakfast table, drinking his coffee, reading his iPad, and a fly is bothering him. And finally, he takes it and he slams it against the fly.
Oh no, there's $100 worth.
Obliterates the iPad. That's $500.
Yeah.
So there's some things you can't do.
Yeah,
You can't
Yeah.
swat a fly with an iPad.
you can't
With a
clean up
tablet.
dog poop.
No, you can't. You can't.
I'm not
make-
going to clean up dog
No,
poop.
you're not
You
going to do
can,
that.
but it will cost you.
Yeah, right. Oh, gosh, So, yeah,
But
go
even
ahead,
before
Sarah.
you start talking about accessing this free stuff, kids in our schools have to have access to the internet first, and I think that's what Ravi is also trying to point out. Kids have to
Yeah.
walk like
I think this
5
is a
miles.
this is a quick and dirty fix. The tablet. The real tragedy is the ZTE scandal. Like a system where public schools can access the cloud. I think they're just delaying this. This is the thing
Well,
we
we
have
have
to
to
do.
be able to do that.
And
Because this is
They
only
can't
part
handle
of
the
it.
corruption of our leaders.
And
This is what happens.
But see, that's
and the
another
children
whole
bear the
show.
brunt.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another whole
No, that's
show.
why.
But children
Yeah.
are affected.
No, that's why
because
they're
of that.
using the tablet.
Yes.
This is a workaround.
Of course. Of course.
Unlike if they had access to that cloud computing, I mean, they don't
Yeah.
have to go miles to school. They can
Yeah.
stay at home. I mean, be able to help out.
No,
at
and
home also learn.
then you cement also the other need of education. Education becomes a communal activity. When everyone has little tablets, then you have to find how to make it communal. You need that teacher. You need them
interaction.
together. Remember, before the TV set was a way for families to bond. If you remember the 50s
Well,
and the
that's-
60s,
yeah, we
then,
said that
then
a
they
lot.
transistorized it, and we're past that. So technological advance isn't all good. You know, we have to learn how to.
Well, it's what
to
we do with it.
control
It's
of
what
the
we do with
technology.
it. It's
Yeah,
what we do
It's
with
not
it.
an end to
And,
itself.
and you know,
Yeah.
when I was
HP and Apple cannot tell us.
no. Well,
we
they're not-
have to tell them.
Yeah, what we
Exactly,
need. Yes.
exactly.
And
We
these
have
are
to be
tools.
consumerist
Yes,
in
these
our
are
and
approach
that's,
to these
and that's
things.
true. You know, and looking at generations again, having gone through 3,000 or 4,000 generations. I mean, in my own case, the
Yeah.
first records of Pinocchio or Jack and the Beanstalk I heard were 78 RPM
Yeah.
that we did on
I
the
still have those.
the scratchy records. And then where did I learn rock and roll was on 45s, you
Yeah.
know, with Elvis. And then it became 33 and a thirds. And then it became cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Well, they had 8-track.
No, and now
8-track
some-
tapes lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah, really.
And then we
No, the
went to-
jeepneys had a lot of them.
and then,
Yeah, big ones.
and then we went to CDs, and now we have MP3 players or the iPods, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And the change will keep
and,
on
and
going
we, and
because
we look at
that's
things
how they
differently.
sell. That's how
Look
they
at-
make money.
Look at how, you know, when we cut a record in 1956 or 57, you went into the studio, you cut some wax, you cut
Yeah.
the record, and you put it out. Now, nobody would think of cutting a record without a video to go with it, you know.
Yeah.
There's got to have. So it's an entirely different concept
Set.
now.
Yeah, it's a
everything's
mindset.
have changed. And we're going to see the same thing in education. I hope we're going to see the same thing in education, and I
Yeah.
hope it's going to improve. But
Yeah.
you know, you were talking about we were better educated or
I mean,
whatever.
using a tablet
I
for
don't-
a
I don't
for
believe that,
decrepit
though.
curriculum.
But my
What
daughter,
for?
Yeah, so the curriculum has to be improved.
my
for this
daughter
as well.
reads more
Content.
after finishing the first grade than I did in the third grade, and I was fast. You know, I mean, the point
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
because she loves music, so she gets on. She goes on to YouTube,
Yeah.
and she gets the lyric, and she reads the lyrics to the music. So she's not only learning the song, she's learning how to
Right.
read. She's
Right.
grabbing onto things. Kids now in their games with the DSs and the Game Boys and all of the other things. We can say, "Oh, that's bad for them," but it's not bad for them. They're learning something
No,
that
can
they
I
wouldn't-
add something
and,
to
and
that?
Because and I wanted to go back to this thing about the hand-eye manipulation. That's something
Yeah.
we'd like to talk. But please do add to that. Yes.
Yeah, no. I listened to this talk. I forget the guy on TED.com.
Okay.
And this is IPR related. He was taking to task the big media companies for trying to come down hard on mashups. And he was saying, this is the way kids talk. They edit stuff together. They edit clips, anything from the cloud. And they said, you're going to lose these kids if you keep thinking they're pirates.
Sure.
You have to be able to. This is their language. This is how they communicate. They're not linear anymore.
No,
so
not
they
at
get
all. No.
they get a music clip, they get a video clip from the web, put it together. It's the whole concept of who owns a collage, right? I mean, that's a traditional concept in art. So the problem is the big media companies,
Run after them.
want to hit them with a hammer.
Well, yeah. Well, it's the whole remix thing. Remember
Yeah,
that's how
exactly,
they're doing now.
exactly.
They're putting rap on with old songs that I
Yeah.
really like, and there's some people that consider rap music, and I'm not going to argue about that now.
You just did.
but yeah, and some of it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of it's
Yeah.
pretty good. And so to say, well, you can't do this, or you know, as an old DJ,
Yeah.
boy, being a DJ today is a very different world
Yeah.
from being a DJ 50 years ago or,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah,
you
who
know, it's
owns
a
the
very, very
collage,
different-
as you
You know,
said.
and that's really true. could we go back to the
Yeah,
point?
the
You made
hand-to-eye
the point.
coordination.
You made the point about hand-eye coordination, you know, and the lady's worried about handwriting. Hey, they've been using a keyboard now for 30 years. Nobody's got good
Well,
handwriting.
I think cursive will die.
Cursive have died. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, was it really
Yeah, I'm
necessary
glad
to learn
you said-
cursive?
Can you read your own writing?
Oh, you haven't seen my. It's great.
Well, mine is great.
Two
too,
colored
but you
fountain
can't-
pens.
I-
Brown ink and black ink.
I learned how to do the thing with the
Palmer method, the
no,
push
no,
and
no,
pull,
no, the
and
italic,
the oval.
the italic,
Oh, yeah.
fat thin thing. You know, I
Yeah, the
studied
calligraphy.
that for a while. Yeah, the calligraphy.
Yeah.
I did that, and I wanted to study Japanese calligraphy, but they wouldn't teach me because I'm left-handed, and they refused to allow anybody to do it left-handed. You got to be right-handed to do it.
That's worse than
But
Yakuza.
now in graduate school is when my handwriting went away because you're scribbling
Yeah,
so fast
yeah,
during
yeah,
these.
yeah.
during
So
these
you became a
lectures
doctor. You wrote like a doctor.
Not that bad. Not that bad.
But as you said, cursive might be obsolete.
Yeah, well, my child has OCD, obsessive compulsive
Oh, okay.
disorder. So because of a trauma in school, he can't hold pencils. So right now he's in homeschooling, and his penmanship is hard, especially now that the curriculum obliges you
To write.
to go into cursive, and you'll be
Right.
tested for cursive. So my wife was saying, "Oh no, you need it. You need it to fill out forms." And then I stopped her. No.
No, you don't.
You need block letters. I mean,
Yes.
think, where do you need to write cursive?
Yeah.
No,
You don't.
And italic is a lot easier to write than cursive anyway.
Yeah.
If you practice
you have the pen.
if you practiced calligraphy, you
Yeah.
know, it's just a lot.
Yeah,
easier
I think
thing
it's
to
a
do.
skill we value, though.
Yeah, yeah.
But
As an artistic value.
yeah, I think there's an
It's
aesthetic. The way books have an
it's
aesthetic value.
It's aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah. But you'll have to find your hand-eye coordination somewhere else, honestly.
But they get the hand-eye coordination from
Stealing
the games,
money from the cookie
from
bar.
the games.
No,
that they
no.
play.
Yes,
No, the
that's
games.
true.
That, you know, one of
That's
the
true.
things. One of my
games
friends
actually teach
from the
something.
Vietnam War
Oh, they
generation.
do.
They do.
And they use it for therapy.
And he and I were both veterans, you know, of the Vietnam War. And his son, just a couple 3 years ago, had to go and do his bit in Iraq. You know,
Yeah.
but his job was to play video games only inside a tank. Running a tank now is the same as a video game.
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah.
everything as a video game. What these
That's
kids are
insane.
doing on DS and all these other things.
Yeah, the flight
that-
simulation,
Well,
those are
hey,
amazing
all of
things.
all of those drones, all of
These are
those
government
drones that are
simulation.
the drones that are being controlled out of the United States
yeah.
are video games being controlled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as a video game, only you're controlling something where you're bombing people, which is
Yeah.
kind of sad
Real
thing to talk
people,
about,
yeah.
real people. But
Yeah.
the point is that that's what a tank is now. It's all
Yeah.
it's all an electronic game. You've got a screen here, and you're manipulating the screen.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing you've been doing
In real life.
in your games that you grew up with. So these kids, when we're talking about hand-eye coordination
Yeah.
or other things, they've got the hand-eye coordination that's needed for this generation.
Yeah.
And this is the part that was the point that I just wanted to make. And obviously, you're a lot more open-minded than it might have appeared when I heard the first
Oh, no,
things
no,
that I
no.
saw in the deal.
That's- I was just leading you
no, I
on.
know you wanted to get a rise out of the old guy. But no. The thing is that we can't say, okay, this is not good because it's different from the way that we learned it. And
Yeah.
this is the hardest thing that I would like to really push on parents. And a problem I have with my wife, she believes that you have to memorize the times tables. You know, there are a lot better ways to learn the times tables
Right.
than memorizing them. you
But
know.
kids now memorize all the game cheats.
Well, they do. They do that. Oh, you remember Rubik's Cube?
Yeah,
They all
yeah,
remember
yeah.
memorize ways
There's
to
a
do the
cheat
Rubik's
sheet on
Cubes.
that?
You know? Oh yeah, there's a cheat
there's
sheet on that one. Yeah, there's a
there's
cheat
on
that.
that. No, and I think this is the point. I don't think we should be distracted by little things like tablets.
Like
I
technology.
think what the technology is doing is asking us to reassess our educational system.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
the challenge.
And we
Content.
won't disagree on that at all.
Yeah, and my advocacy is really to be a consumerist geek.
Geek.
I mean, I'm all for gadgets,
Yeah.
but don't be a slave. Don't believe in the ads. I mean, if you want to be a real geek, then know your hardware. Know what it's about.
Make
know
it
the
work for
software.
you.
Yeah, make it work for you.
Yeah,
Sure.
Don't be a buyer.
Well,
Just for the sake of
I think
Be the
I
controller.
think the iPad. Everybody agrees that Apple is one of the greatest marketers in the world. They built something that you're not needed and sold how many millions
Yeah.
of them? It really has no use, and they've sold millions.
No, and
you know,
the
millions
rumor
of
is
them,
the
you know.
iPad 3 is coming out this
Well,
autumn.
yeah, you know, so everybody
So
would
this is
trade
the
in
two
their
is
iPad 2
no
for their iPad
the 2
3.
is a transition.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
They're
they all
just
are.
trying to
you know.
get rid of their LED screens.
And we would all still rather have something like this. you
Yeah,
know.
I'd like to
And
have
probably-
that one,
well, here, just
yeah,
take it
yeah.
with you when you go.
That's
It'll-
really light. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
No.
light.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The,
And
uh,
Ravi mentioned earlier that when you migrate, for example, a textbook into a different format, it doesn't have to be copied exactly the same way as it was in a textbook. You can use graphics, so that you can make it interactive, and well, of course, there are
I
royalties
think
issues.
now we
but-
have to seriously test the metaphor of the old book.
Yeah, the
Yes,
metaphor. The metaphor is the
yes,
most
I know.
important thing.
You
We have
don't
to change
just
the
copy
metaphor.
The
it
form
into the
factor is
screen.
changing.
We have to change the metaphor. We
Don't
really
just
do.
change it. I think that's great for novels. Because then
Yes,
if you wanted
that's
the
right.
movie, you download it in a torrent. I know this is an IPR
Oh,
show.
hey, this is an IP show here. You know?
This is no, I'm loading for the next episode.
No.
But you know what
but
I
for a
mean.
textbook,
You know, one of the
for
things
learning,
you were
yeah.
talking about, you know, people ask me what I do for a living, and I never say that I'm a writer. I say that I'm a person who makes a living writing. And
Yeah.
I always differentiate because it seems that
Correct.
you're in the same publishing type of business. People come to me and say, hey, I want a book on this, or I want a video on this, or I want a movie on this. And then they pay me and I make it. And we make an agreement that they're going to pay me before I write it or before I produce
Yeah.
it. That's the person who makes a living writing, whether you're in advertising or anything else. If you're a writer, you actually do it and then go out and try to sell it, you know,
Yeah.
which is you don't nearly get as fat as I do on that kind of
No, not at all.
on that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so what we're in here is we have to deal with groups of writers, and we have to, which are the most difficult things in the world, other than designers, to deal with. in groups.
To
And
handle.
publishers deal with both of them.
I know. And no, they found two designers who agreed with each other one time. They had to kill one of them. It was really hard because that's the nature of the beast. That's when you're dealing with
Creativity.
creative people, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we put those teams together now? You know, when we're putting together a textbook team, one of the worst things that ever happened to me in graduate school, and I'm going to probably be
You have to
yelled-
storyboard
I'm going to
it.
be yelled at on this, you know, when I come back. But I felt that the quality of teaching degraded every year from the first grade on through graduate school, and graduate school was just about the lowest and the worst that I had. I mean, as far as teaching.
And where did you study?
At a top university.
Yeah.
No, guys, hey, they put their name on a textbook. They get up and they read their textbook to
Yeah,
you
yeah.
in class.
Yeah.
And it's
That's how
really
they
awful
teach.
if it's in a foreign language where you're
Yeah.
struggling with the language as
Wakarimasu.
well.
That's how they teach.
難しいなんですよ。anyway, so the thing is that I think that again, I'm applauding what they're doing in Laguna, not because it's the final answer, but it's a start.
Yeah.
It's somebody
Well,
starting something to do
I'd like
that
to add
needs to be
something.
done. Yeah.
I think our reporters should learn how to report on tech issues.
Yes, give us data.
You know, that sounded like a press release.
Yes,
that
it
was
is.
just a press release. They should say, what is it? Is it the Android that sells, you know, in the malls for like 6,000 pesos, right?
Yeah.
So, and then how do you load it?
Is the Android
this
selling
is-
that cheaply? Is it?
Yeah, they're
Is
Android
it-
based now. Most of them are
Yeah,
Android
really,
based.
okay.
$7,000 in pesos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you have it. Electronic books coming to Laguna high school students this June, and the
Yeah,
piracy
tell us
issues.
more.
Tell
Yeah.
us more, reporters.
Put up a website on it.
Yes,
yeah.
put up some data. Or maybe we should address it also to the provincial government of
Yeah,
Laguna.
yeah, I
Give
mean,
us
make
more
it
data.
transparent.
We'd like to help you. We'd like to help you gather data before and after this pilot test that you're going to conduct this coming June. Again, thank you for joining us here on the Piracy Watch. I'd like to thank Mr. Larry Breward and Mr. Ravi Sunico for joining.
Thanks for
Well,
a
thank
great
you. Thanks for
conversation.
listening this
Yeah,
morning.
great.
Yeah, so you are still on DZRJ, the voice of the Philippines.
You have been listening to Piracy Watch with attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan. Piracy Watch, an exclusive presentation of DZRJ, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines.